like that, I lost 95% of revenue overnight.
Wow. 500,000 workers could soon lose their jobs.
Rebecca Adehill, an entrepreneur, coach and a speaker.
Well, if you want to be more confident even, become more competent.
It's like the new level, new devil.
Practice, put the hours in, put the reps in.
They're good at business because they also know how to mitigate.
Sweet fuck all by just sitting in my bank account.
All right, welcome to Buying Gold Coast. So we got our guest ep today, and this one's really relevant because the feedback we had from last week's guest ep with Ruben Bagola, obviously entrepreneur on the Gold Coast, New Wave Financial, they got the whole group. But one thing with his ep was absolutely such a deep dive on profits in the property. And I think the theme we're going to definitely do more based on the feedback we've been having is just everyday Gold Coasters, doing different things. They're successful in their own right, and a lot of people don't understand that they're doing things outside of just their work too. We've had athletes, we've had builders, we've had all sorts of just everyday Gold Coasters having a crack. And today's no different. We've actually got an absolute weapon in the building. We got Rebecca Adehill. So she's an entrepreneur, coach, and a speaker, and she's also the host of the Rebecca Adehill Show. Absolutely amazing show, so check that one out. And also, what a lot of people don't know, she's also a very lovely family woman, and she's also a mum of 3, balances it all. I don't know how. And believe it or not, she's also dabbled in a bit of property as well, which I'm keen to dive into and hear some of her key learnings. But Rebecca, thanks for jumping on Buying Gold Coast.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation. It feels really special that it's, the core of property. And I think that has been such a effortless journey for me to kind of fall into property. So thank you so much for having me.
No, it's cool. And it's probably a bit of a different podcast than your usual mindset. And
very much so. Yeah. So I'm open.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We've had people, we've had athletes, we've had, and people often forget of multifacets of successful people is in different areas, right? And that's one thing I've captured on a few guests, and you're no different. What I like to start with first, just give us a run. So you're doing the great entrepreneur, but just give us a quick idea of that, and then we'll talk on, I guess, the property front. So where did that whole journey start from?
Beautiful. Thank you for asking. So very long story short, I moved out here. So I grew up in Sweden, moved out here on my own in 2010. And I found myself in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, just, trying to navigate my way
the Australian
through.
Dream.
Oh, very much so. Sort of landed in the eastern suburbs, and sort of I was straight out of school when I moved out of here. Had $3,000 in the bank, and sort of just wanted to have a crack. And very long story short, I was walking the streets of Sydney, and I was just amazed by all of the properties that I was surrounded by. And they were so out of reach for me back then. And I was like, there is no way. And I could see the people walking out of the houses, people walking into the houses. And I'm like, this is so out of reach. I'm like, well, one day I will own one of them homes. And I'm like, but that is such a huge gap. It's such a huge gap from having $3,000 in the bank to buying a property in Sydney. I thought, well, what can I do to at least be inside of one of those homes? I said, maybe I'll just get into real estate.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. You went into the industry. Yes.
So in about 2012, I somewhat lied a little bit on my resume.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to have a crack and see if I can get a job in real estate, because I just loved the energy of property and just seeing and hearing how people were just building wealth through property. So I got myself this job interview, and I walked into this real estate office, had no idea. And this massive dude just walks in, and I had run to the shop, bought my first corporate dress, and I was like, fuck, I'm just going to give it a shot. I've got nothing to lose here.
Yeah.
And he looked down at my resume, and he's like, Rebecca, I'm really confused. He's like, that you've applied for a job in real estate. He said, but what I can see, he goes, you're a dancer. He goes, you've danced ballet your whole life. He goes, this makes no sense. And I said, just give me a minute. And he's like, yeah, go for it. And I said, well, I think you should hire me because I am a dancer. I said, because the level of dedication, commitment, my work ethic will be unmatched to anything that you've ever seen. And I may not know a certain task that you're going to give me, but I will make sure that I'll practice and I will deliver every single time.
Love it.
Long story short, got the job, and I found myself getting a job in real estate.
Wow.
And that's sort of how my journey started.
So that planted the seed of real estate. Yeah,
that planted the
started back
seed
then. Wow.
of real estate. So, and a few years sort of went by, and I started my own business, and it was a marketing and business agency specifically
Gotcha.
for fitness franchises.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
The F45 was it?
Yes,
Was it?
I worked with F45. I did for
Yeah.
a number of years, and I was the global franchise manager. And then I
Gotcha.
went out on my own. And what I noticed as I had this business and marketing agency, that there were so many business owners. They were excellent at their craft, say training people, but they didn't know how to run a business. So essentially our whole model was that we started to look after the back end of their business so they could actually focus on just serving their people or training people,
Yep.
whatever that was. And that company grew to a very, very healthy point up until COVID happened. And then like that, I lost 95% of revenue overnight. Because, you know, we were in the service space, but we were specifically servicing people in the fitness space. And obviously all the gyms shut down, so we could not deliver our service. So
Wow.
my business crashed, like
Yeah.
literally at COVID. But in that moment, I'm like, I'm going to pivot. Now is the time where we pivot. And I just started to share online of what I was seeing in the online space, what people were pivoting really well, what people were struggling with. And I just had an abundance of people saying, I've lost my job due to COVID, or I need to pivot in my business. Do you think you can help me? And that is essentially how my coaching business was born. And it exploded very organically. I actually had no intention of going into coaching. It was pure out of just a want of helping people that had really struggled in COVID.
Wow.
And a few years later, I've built a multi-million-dollar business, and we're flying.
That's crazy. It's so cool. Hey, like they always say, like sliding door moments in life,
Absolutely.
and like, you know, life will always open up doors, but it's our job to like walk through them, right? And life will close the ones we're not meant to continue to walk through. And it's like nearly that pivot pushed you in a area which opened up another one. It's just crazy, hey, how things like that happen. And I forgot all about that. Yeah, you had that little dabble in real estate, so it must have been planted there. I'm just curious to know actually, because it was funny. Me and my assistant were talking off air before this on the accent.
Yes.
She said like African or South African or something. I said, I think it's Sweden. I don't know. But
Yeah.
so I'm curious to know, because I come from an immigrant background too. What was, you know, the family dinner table chats around like money, wealth? Like what was that like in Sweden?
Oh, yeah. Thank you for asking. And I always say I grew up on a foundation of love. We had enough, but we never had an overflow. And, you know, mum and dad, they owned their home, but then very long story short, they separated, and money was a real struggle. I got a job from a very early age. I think I had my first job when I was 12.
Wow.
And when I went to dance school, I was working on weekends and after school selling car insurance. Like I was working from a very, very young age. And I think I was never really brought up in conversations around investing and building wealth. And, you know, that is something that has just been self-taught, I guess, since moving to Australia. You know, my dad was a bus driver. He had his own businesses growing up, but, you know, he retired as a bus driver. My mum worked in daycare and as a childcare teacher for many, many years. So it wasn't that essential, like entrepreneurial drive, but I always had it in me. There was something in me that I'm like, I know that I'm going to be the one in my family that will create something different. So those conversations, they weren't very, very abundant, but I always say, and I thank my parents for this, they made me the most confident human. They always made me believe that anything I wanted to do, they're like, of course you can do that.
Yeah, I love that.
It was just the push of like, we've got you. You have a solid foundation, go for it.
Yeah.
Same when I moved, or same when I went for a job, or whatever that was, they gave me the gift of confidence. And I think that is like half the battle of like actually putting yourself out there.
Yeah, 100%. No, it's a common one too. And that's why I asked, because I don't know, it's a key. We've had some really big hitters on this show, and like, I just know a lot of them were not from Australia, like they were from very like different backgrounds. And the one thing I noticed, the overarching similarity was like work ethic and hard work. And I think it's just ingrained. Hey, like Ruben, even like last week, like Filipino background and like very poor upbringing, and like seeing my dad Poland, and we had some other people from like South Africa was one, And it's just like
Yeah.
you just see your parents work, and it's nearly like kind of just gets instilled.
For sure.
Nearly.
Very hard workers.
And the one thing I noticed, and it's funny, you said the same thing, like money wasn't abundant, like it was always scarce. And that's what I found as well, is like
For sure.
money doesn't grow on trees, man,
Yeah.
like hand me down, like whatever's
Definitely. Gotta
available
save,
kind of thing.
save.
Yeah, save. Very
Yeah.
saver mindset.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you come to Australia and it's like, wow, like it's like.
And I'm from a small town, and like it was only 14,000 people
Wow.
living in the town that I was from, like very, very small. So yeah, definitely. And I think coming to Australia is just like, it's such an eye opener. It's just, different perspective. But I think that work ethic, and also you learn to have your own back. Like when I look back
Love
and when I
that.
first arrived here, it's like, I had no work experience, but got myself a job. And like you just put yourself forward because you have no choice. Like, well, I can fall back and I can go back to Sweden, but that was not a choice for me. So I just kept like putting myself in situations, even though I was scared, even though I was nervous, I just kept saying, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. Yeah, I can do it. And if I don't know how to do something, I'm going to figure it out. And that has always been my mindset of, well, if you want to be more confident, even become more competent, practice, put the hours in, put the reps in. And I did that in all areas, and I just kept doing that. And I feel like that was just like a beautiful upward spiral of just expansion because I was so committed of like, okay, great. If you want to be confident in this, learn to become really competent. And then I just kept moving.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, and just that really solid work ethic.
Yeah. I love that. The confidence comes from the competence. Love that, 100%.
Yeah.
And that probably leads then, because I wanted to extract your background a little bit, not being from Australia, but also the pivots. And there would have been so many challenges, I'm sure, when that COVID time was happening.
Yeah.
That just, I guess, gives a little framework or understanding of where you were and where you're going to now, because it sounds like, other than kind of having a little taste as a post dancer in real estate, there was no experience in buying property or anything like that. So that's why I'm really curious, like on the journey of business, I can see exactly why you're successful in business, right? Like you have the entrepreneurial traits of a great, you're well-spoken, the work ethic, and you're all about personal development. Now, this is something I'm keen to explore, right, is when business started doing well, where did property come back in the picture from when you were that young girl again? Like because I know it's like when business is flying, it's like it's such a vehicle.
Yeah.
And everyone's in that. And there could be someone listening right now who's flying in business right now. But they also understand you're trading time for money potentially too.
Yes,
and like you got to kind of diversify potentially. Where did that all come into picture for you?
Well, first of all, being like because I worked in real estate in Sydney for a few years, and just seeing the wealth that was created, like around 2012 to 2016.
Oh yeah, that was boom time in eastern suburbs of Sydney,
Right? And I was just in the thick of that boom.
Yep.
And obviously I was very far away from buying something, but then just seeing the success people had with property. And I feel like I was just like in the middle of that celebration. I got to be in that frequency. And I think something I really want to share here, and this is not, I think it's an important part of like how we can actually start in property, because I met my husband and we had our first son, Carter. But we were living in the eastern suburbs at the time, like paycheck to paycheck. We had no money and this is like 7.5 years or like 8 years ago. We did not have much saved up, but I knew it was really important for me to buy a property. So we're like, well, I'm far from a deposit right now. I know that we could potentially service a loan, but I'm far from a deposit. So we moved in with Brody's parents for 10 months.
Love this. Yeah.
Right. And it's not like the sexiest story to be like, yeah, I fucking made it. Like, it's just like, that's what we did. We did what we had to do to just get in on that first property. And we actually bought our first property on the Central Coast. We were like, Sydney's out of reach.
Yeah.
So we moved out of the hustle and bustle of the eastern suburbs to the Central Coast, which is like a retirement village.
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah.
But, just very quiet. But we got an in. And from that point, so we lived with his parents for 10 months and we just saved. We still paid a little bit of rent, but we just saved every bit of it to buy, to be able to buy and have a deposit. And we bought our first property, and after living in that for maybe a year and a half, we're like, okay, we're just getting a little bit bored here now. It was just a little bit too quiet. And by that time, we'd had another 2 kids. So I had all of my 3 kids in 3.5 years. We just had them back to back. And when my third son, my third kid was 3 weeks old, we're like, let's move to the Gold Coast.
Wow.
And my husband, he's a veteran, so he spent a lot of time up in Brisbane.
Yeah.
And I'm like, sure, let's move. And we actually got a rental up in Bigger Waters. So we got tenants for our property. So we managed to keep the property. We got tenants in to just service the loan. We got a rental property, and we just packed up and we moved up into Bigger Waters. And we just started to look for properties. And about 8 to 10 months later, we bought our second investment, which was the house that we moved into.
Love it.
Yeah, and it was really cool because during that time, my business really started to take off from 2021 sort of onwards, or 2020 onwards. It really started to take off. And what was so beautiful that I'm running such a lean business, like high profit margins. And I was able to just take the profits that my company has generated, and also on paper, at the time also I had hired my husband as a full-time employee to basically be a stay-at-home dad, like awesome support. But now we have the serviceability, plus we have the profits.
Deposits, yeah.
So we could hold on to the investment property on the Central Coast, and we just bought our second property.
Love that. I love that. There's so much gold in that, right?
Yeah.
And just in that little journey there. So number one is I love the sacrifice piece. Like,
For sure.
that would have been, and this is a good one. This is a really good one. And I've heard 2 stories that come up in mind. Like, there were property flippers, Michael and Beck, I think it was, or Michael and Tony. It was about a year ago, and they're killing on the coast, like they do all the high end. But they lived in the garage of their parents' home.
Wow.
And they were just doing renos.
Yeah.
And for them being like in their mid-20s, all their friends are doing, and they're living in a little garage,
For sure.
So I wanted to, how was that for the ego for you? Like, how did you control? Because a lot of people, that's the answer. The cost of living right now, like sometimes you have to understand, like you have to make sacrifices. Like you sacrifice maybe getting out of the bougie eastern suburbs to something affordable.
Yeah.
How was it moving back home? Like, what was the conversation with your hubby and that then? Was it a bit of or you're both on the same page, like, hey, let's swallow the ego now and we got to move back in home?
Yeah, for sure. And I think when you know what you value, like I feel like I always had a plan in place. So
Love
for
it.
me, if I'm going to get judged by people around me for making sacrifices to build a better life for my family, my children, well, I'm sorry, but see ya.
Love it.
For me, it was just, like my husband and I, we were just tight. Like he knew exactly, are you in? Are you in? Yeah, we're willing to do this. And also like my in-laws, like I'm so grateful for them to just, I was a new mum at the time as well.
Yeah,
And
wow.
like
Yeah.
even that, and navigating life as new parents in my in-laws' house
In the
in
house,
a new,
yeah.
like, right on the
Yeah.
Central Coast, like it
Wow.
was huge.
Yeah.
And also running a business at the same time whilst navigating all of these things. But I'm like, I am willing to do what's required to get to where, I see our life moving at as a family. And that was really,
Love
really
it.
important for me.
Yeah.
So what, did we have moments of challenge, like living in the same house? And, at the time, Brody's brother was in that house. Like, it was a lot of people in that house. And I feel like I was living in my in-laws' house, like you intruding on their personal space. And they're like, we were there for 10 months.
Wow.
But I'm so, like, I look back at that and I'm like, that got us in. And sometimes you just need to do what's required. That was 10 months. We put our heads down. We worked our butts off. We did everything that we had to do to get that deposit. We went to the bank. Boom. We got
Love it. Oh, love that. It's the short-term pain for the long-term gain as well, isn't it?
I'll do it again because it's
Yeah.
like, we speak about egos and like making it look good and all the things. But, I say this all the time, like people spend so much time trying to look rich and then they have a fucking like not a dollar to their bank account.
Yeah.
It's like, we were laughing at, my bag I rocked up with here and all the things and all the, beautiful things that I can buy now. I said, I do not walk into a luxury store until I'd had my first 100K
Yeah.
month in business.
Yeah.
And we're talking like a high profit margin business. I said, I was driving in like a shitty Volvo for like a
Yes.
very long time until I was okay to upgrade. So it's like I didn't never worry about looking rich. I was more worried about building wealth that would actually support me and my family long term.
Love that. And I think a big pillar out of that too, Rebecca, is clarity. Like having a why. And I spoke to Ruben last week too, and we were heavily talking around like, why are we even doing what we're doing, like with property and business? And it's like, I find the best in property business, they have a really strong cause or a strong why. And I noticed that why is what gets you through to, it's like, well, if you got a strong enough why and you can see it, I love how you said, I seen it. Of course, you got to move back home. If it's there and this is what's required to get there,
Absolutely.
then you got to have a why. So without that, it seems like maybe that's holding people back.
I say it comes down to three things. In order for you to get to where you want to go, it's first and foremost, you're going to have 100% clarity on your vision.
Yeah.
Number two, it's 100% belief that you can do it and knowing that you're going to be the person that's going to drive that forward. And number three, it's 100% of the time. You're going to have the clarity, the belief, and the time, and you're going to be locked in, loaded, like we are doing this. Without that, if you don't have the clarity, but you have the belief and the time, you're like, well, what am I working towards?
Yes.
And then say you have the clarity and you have the belief, but you are not putting the time in. It's like you actually need all three pillars to actually make progress moving forward. It's the same in business. It's the same like in any area that you want to grow. Do I have the clarity in terms of like what does my vision actually look like here? Do I have the belief that I can do it? Am I backing myself when no one else is clapping? Do I have my own back?
Yeah.
And number three, am I willing to do whatever it takes, be all in? And that's what I really love. When you shared with me, when you came on my podcast, when you said, well, I had to walk in and actually resign and I gave myself 6 months, like that is 100% commitment. You had a vision of what you were creating and you were like, I'm backing myself here. And it's huge. You weren't 50% in. It's like all in. And I really love that.
Yeah, I love it. And when it comes to property, it relates so much, like having that clarity. And sometimes the biggest cost is inaction. You know, people are so afraid with property in particular. Even people who are now scaling the business, it's scary, the property thing. Just listen to the last 30 minute of Rebecca there. It's having that clarity. But at the end of the day, the most expensive thing you probably have right now is not action, not taking and executing.
And I've got another great example. As we bought another investment after that, up in Broadbeach, and that was just another one of them moments where we just got in at the right time.
Yeah.
4-bedroom house, 850 square meter block with pool, 5 minutes from Pack Fair.
Yeah.
And we were sort of just in the talks. We got a pre-approval and all the things, and my husband went and looked at this property and he was like, I think this is it. This will be perfect. And we, very long story short, we bought the property and the guy, he actually got passed in. I was the highest bidder at auction and got passed in. And then the agent, he was just so keen. And I knew that I was sitting on a gold mine, but I'm like, I'm going to hold firm here now. I'm going to walk away. And he was so desperate because the owners had already bought. So they really had to sell. And I checked, we checked in at the Langham. So we were just down the road, really. And the agent is like, okay, they've accepted your offer. Like, let's go. And he came to the Langham. We signed the contract for our investment property at the Langham. So it's just like I have a beautiful little love story with the Langham, because every time I walk into the foyer, there's like, that's where we signed. That's where we signed the deal.
I love that.
So we bought that, and since we've had it for about 2 years now, but we got it valued 18 months after we bought that, and it had almost gone up $500,000. And that's conservative from the bank.
From the bank val, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
It's not an agent juicing up the numbers here, like very conservative numbers. It's almost gone up $500K in 18 months. It's just sitting there. And we started off using that as an Airbnb. And I think maybe we touch on that, because something that I really noticed, and that was great. We got good money coming in from it, but then it was like the extra Airbnb fee. We had the cleaning fee and all the maintenance and the customer service and all the things. And I feels like, this is actually not the path I want to go down.
Love it.
And it was also very much like up and down. We had a big influx of bookings and then we had nothing. And then, and what I noticed that I really valued then, I just wanted to have something that I could just set and forget.
Yeah.
So we changed it to long-term rental. And now that is more than profitable.
Yes.
Just sits there and it just pays off the mortgage. And I'm
Yes.
like, just want to do it again and again and again.
I love that so much, Rebecca, because one little topic there on short-term versus long-term,
Yes.
right, is in its entirety, like I don't have any short-term rentals, and people are like, why don't you do the short-term rental? I've got a few properties in different lifestyle, but I always look at things from a net position.
Yes.
Net cost.
sure.
And then you apply net time too.
Yeah.
Because if there's management of, booking and rebooking and cleaners and all that sort of stuff. And if you get a manager to manage a short-term rental, generally their fees are high. So if you actually do the math and the tax, it's nearly, if not less, versus a long-term rental. And that's why I'm so big on location. We'll do 80% of the heavy lifting.
Absolutely.
I bet the rental in that every 6 to 12 months has increased, like since you got it.
It has.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's what people, they always look at things in the short-term lens. They want the quick cash or the quick, 3 bookings in a row. But if you steadily look at over 5 years, I bet you look at that property now and it's ticking. It's been ticking.
Absolutely. And even I've sort of, we've only had that for 2 years now. So, when we switched, we had only had that property for a year, but that was enough for me to actually compare, to see the consistent revenue coming in versus, the sporadic up and down. And, I could feel my nervous system to be like, fuck, we don't have bookings coming in over Easter, or do we? And this and that. And I just really love the steady income. And since then, we have increased the rental by $200 per week. Just in the last, since they renewed the lease, which was only recently, we've been able to increase that, for another $200. And, they pay about $16.50 a week.
Yeah, crazy, hey?
Yeah.
Just quickly on that property journey, I'm keen to know, with the first one, or I probably know the answer, but I'm keen for you to extract this for anyone who's in business right now. They're getting going, getting some profit. They've finally ticked in the profit. They've got some little take homes now. What was the hardest thing let's talk to the people who haven't got one yet, or they just want to get the first one. Business is doing well. What is the hardest bit of that journey you feel to get into that first one? You said you're servicing. Was it just getting that deposit? Was it?
Yeah, it was definitely the deposit. Yeah, definitely. I think that was the hurdle for the first one.
Yeah.
I think once you get into 2, 3, and then also the commercial 4, then you start to have a servicing issue.
Yes.
So which you need to be mindful of there. But certainly the first one is looking at that deposit. And I think, what I would really say to people here is are you willing to do what's required to start working on that deposit? And for me, what that looked like was working 2 jobs.
Yeah.
I had my business and I did that. I was just saying yes. What can I do to get more cash in the bank and double down on the savings? And now I'm in the mindset of well, is it easier to make 10 grand or save 10 grand? Well, I can go and make $10,000 today. So for me, it's a different mindset. But as you are getting that first one, it's you need to save for that. But then it's oh, okay, if I only have this one job, that's going to take me X amount. What would it look like for me to get a weekend job? What would it look like for me to go and ask for a pay rise? What would it look like for me to just shifting things and just really setting yourself a goal for the next 12 months? I'm going to put my head down, because the longer we wait, if you see the property market for the past 10 years, it's do it now.
Yes.
Whether you have kids or not, or whether you are single or in a relationship, it doesn't matter. Make it a priority. And I think even if it's $500 or $100, it's don't underestimate the significance of putting away $100 because it all adds up. But I think people have the mindset of, well, that's going to take me such a long time. Well, if you start in 6 months' time, it's going to take you 6 months longer.
Yeah.
So it's just start putting away, and that really added up.
Yeah.
And then I was sort of lucky, from once we got that first one and started to, because then we had growth in all of our properties. Now we could use the equity of those properties to then buy another one. So now I'm now I don't have a deposit issue anymore. Now I need to make sure that I can service the loans. And luckily, my business has been on a beautiful trajectory of running a high profit business. So I could cash flow and service all of those loans.
And just love, you've pretty much explained the journey of the business owner to investment journey. Like why I want to unpack it. Stage one is deposit. I love your lessons there. It seems like you need to make money. Like at the end of the day, I say this to everyone, if you're in that, you need to get better skilled in your business to make more profits. And again, if it takes another job or something, like the deposit, I always say the first one is generally the hardest because it's generally some cold, hard cash you need to save. And one thing I love there, you said, Rebecca, and I'm so big on, is like especially on the Gold Coast, the key is to get in the market before getting priced out of the market.
Yeah.
Because the market is moving far quicker than the ability of your procrastination of not saving. So it's like, and it's only hindsight after 6 to 12 months where it's like, oh, if only I bought that property back then, I would have been sweet now. And then that vicious cycle happens.
For sure.
And I really love it. Probably the biggest one, and you would attend to this because you know a lot of business owners too. I find in business as well, there's also a trap when the business is scaling and it's pumping. It's you make more, you spend more. And the lifestyle creep kicks in.
Yeah.
And that deposit is always, you could be 100K a year or you could be 100K a week. But if your expenses are you're traveling at the same, which I see a lot on the Gold Coast, is you're in the exact same position as someone who hasn't even got a business.
Yeah.
And you could be earning 10 mil revenue.
Yeah.
But if you can't keep the money too,
For sure.
such a big one. And I love what you said there around you have to think of ways to build the deposit.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
retain the profits.
And even I think, where my mindset is at as well, is like I have a certain number. Like once I hit like this number in savings in my business bank account, I'm like, I know it's time to invest.
Love it.
And I always say, because I think it's really easy, like once you start to see like the money going up and up and up, it's like, of course, like it feels good, it feels very abundant. But I'm like, it will do sweet fuck all by just sitting in my bank account. Right? So I need to take that. I've set myself a minimum. Like once we get above this, we're investing.
Yeah,
once we
love
get
it.
above this, we're investing.
It's a really good tip.
Yeah, it really is, because I think otherwise we get in the comfort of like I know that there is a level of like safety maybe that people feel when they see the money in the bank and they have the savings, because often, especially our generation, that's what we taught. You save up and you hold and you're going to be careful and this and that. And for me it's like, no, I'm all in. And I think for me, property is the most predictable space to be in. I don't invest in crypto.
Yeah.
There are so many different avenues. And here's the thing. It could be a million different ways to $1 million or to, $1 billion. Whatever your path is, I just think you need to go with the direction where you feel like you have the most education in, where you feel the most comfortable, where you are investing your money. It's like, I don't know enough about crypto or mining or here and there. It's like, I'm sure that will be a fantastic avenue, but I need to go with the one where I'm like, I know I can back this because I understand it.
Yeah.
In my mind, it feels safe. It feels predictable, which means that I'm going to bet on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And it's a key thing I see with a lot of great business owners who also diversify into building good property portfolios is they're good at business because they also know how to mitigate risk. And Ruben and listen to that, it was such a good app, and like, he's turning up a huge bit, like 20, 30 mil business, right? And he said exactly this thing I think of too, like business can go tomorrow. Your bank account could be cleared like that.
Yeah.
Make wrong move in sort of business.
Yeah.
It can all go. Yeah. So sometimes it's good to take some chips off the table and put in something a little bit more safer, like shelter.
Yes.
And I always say, unless shelter's going out of fashion anytime soon, you can bet over the short to medium term, it's a bit safer. So I love what you said there, the mentality of you got a limit. That's when I know I'm taking some chips off the table and just parking it somewhere else, because it's not doing well. And that's where the lifestyle creep, I think, can come in, because it's so healthy. You can kind of just don't know what to do with it somehow, and you just spend. And that's, I guess, leading us to the next part of the journey is business is flowing now. Profits are flowing. You got the reputation. You got a few properties now. You got the CAD, but now the ability to service loans is the next ceiling a lot of business owners
for sure.
face. Like, do you want to touch on that or any mindsets of like, what was your mentality of like, you got, a few properties now, business is doing well, but you wanted to keep, growing your portfolio. What were some challenges or mindset shifts that you had during that phase of your journey?
Yeah, I love that question. For me, I'm very logic when it comes to stuff like this. So for me, for instance, I will proactively contact the broker and see where do I need to sit to be able to service X amount.
Love it.
So I actually know where is my threshold, what am I working towards? And when I know that number, if that's 100 grand a month or if that's, $250,000 a month or like however much that is, I know exactly where I'm going to get to. And then it's just a matter of reverse engineering. So do I have a model that can actually service 250K cash collected per month? 100%. Perfect. Okay, what would that look like? How many leads do I need to get?
How many
clients do I need? Like,
Love it.
what would that look like? How do I get the lead flow? What's that conversion? What's the delivery of all of those? So I just become very logic when it comes to stuff like that. And I think that has really helped me because sometimes like we're speaking like big numbers and big dreams and big goals. I'm like, okay, let's just take out, all of those big dreams and big goals and make them very, map it out and make it very tangible. So I think that has been really important for me to do that and go, okay, what's next? And next for us was the recent commercial property that we bought. And we've had that for about a year now. And that was a journey on its own. And I think sometimes I want to highlight this because I had no clue what I got myself into when I bought a commercial property. And if I look back at that, I'll be like, I probably should have done a little bit more research, but gosh, I'm happy. I decided to buy that because now once I'm in, I'm like, now I see why all of you rave on about commercial and just property in general. And I think sometimes it's like, we can sit and do all the research and we can make sure it's a good deal in here and there. But sometimes like you just need an in. And what I ask myself in that moment is like, do you trust yourself? If everything falls apart, do you trust yourself? I would happily, maybe not happily, but I would be open to people just take everything I've got, I'll rebuild it tomorrow.
Because you've got the lessons, the learnings from the journey so far. Like it's like you know how to execute the current plan you're sort of on.
But it's also like an unwavering self-trust. Like when I say that I'm willing to do what's required to get to where I want to go, I mean it. Not just when I'm having a good week or when I'm motivated or when people are clapping for me and, whatever else. Unwavering commitment. And you need to be able to look yourself in the mirror and go, am I willing? And last year we had some of the biggest challenges that I've ever, like personally, that we had to navigate. But in that moment, I'm like, okay, great, I have a choice now. I can decide to just call it quits, to sit in my grief of the person that we've lost and all the things that we were navigating. But I'm like, I'm up against it. Here we go again. Just another moment to rise. And I think it's so easy to just sugarcoat what it actually takes.
Yes, 100%. Yes.
I know the reps that you are putting in behind the scenes, how dedicated you are to your professional growth, your personal growth, like looking after yourself. Like it takes so much and you have to be willing. And if people are not willing, that is okay. But I think you have to come down to the truth, to your own truth, or like, what's my truth in this? And my truth in this is I want to see how much I can create and build and how many people I can impact and how much, what a life I can give my children. We have this one life and I just want to see. I'm curious. Right?
The
and
limitless
that excites
potential.
Me. Because it's like, well, the only limitation is like, well, we place that on ourselves. And I'm just like, what if? What if we just give it a shot? What if we just make a bid on that property? What if I just say yes to that opportunity? What if I just open myself up to be open to that collaboration, that opportunity? I wonder what will happen. Will we feel fear? Will we have doubt? Maybe. But that fear, for instance, saying buying your first investment, buying your first property, I was scared every single time.
Yes.
But what I say in that moment, you know, that feeling you get like, oh, fuck, I'm moving now. You can feel it in your whole entire body. I say, thank you for showing me where my threshold of expansion is.
Love that.
Because every time when we just sit, we're comfortable, we're just kicking back, cool, we're not expanding. Every time we hit that, it's like, thank you. Thank you for showing where my threshold of expansion is. You say yes to whatever that is, investing in your first property, starting a business, deciding to go next level in your business. That's your next level.
Oh, love that. That got me fired up. I'm ready to.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. It's. I always say one of my favorite mindsets. I heard it early on in the property journey, and you can apply it for everything. It's like you got to have the courage to start, and then the discipline to keep going.
Yeah,
Because
love
sometimes momentum will get you over the cliff, but it's when those tough time comes and when the highlight reel isn't on Instagram and the people don't see the behind the scenes, that's actually where the discipline comes in. And that's what I notice separates someone like yourself to someone else who might be in business, but they haven't got that clarity on why and where and those sorts of things. And the belief is such a big one too.
Huge.
And it applies so much into property as we wrap up. But like, I'm curious to know, Rebecca, like obviously now you got through those ceilings of servicing, you know, deposit, go to the next journey that people are going to face is that servicing. Obviously, a big part of that is, I feel like one of my biggest lessons in business is those times to reinvest into the business to boost up that top line and the profits, right? So you can keep, it's like the new level, new devil.
Yeah, 100%.
And you're going to have to, there's times, that's what I like the synergy between property and business. There's times where it's all in on business.
Yeah.
And there's times where you take that and have a look at property.
Yeah.
And then there's times the new ceiling will come and then you're doubling down. Sometimes like I remember I had to take 2 years off property to go, all right, let's go. I invested heavily into team and all those sorts of things, and I couldn't borrow for 2 years, but I knew I love your little vision, like just 2 years, let's go. And then being able to go back to the bank now, and the ceiling's different now. And I think without that why that you said, I'm just thinking of the times when I had those tough times too, and it's like, you got to have a clear vision on why. And I think lastly, Rebecca, what is the, if you look at now we're moving forward, like you got the current, but moving forward, like what is not only the why, but what's the, I guess, journey you'd like to take? I mean, no one's got a crystal ball, but what's in the immediate future you think for you when it comes to, I guess, property and business and the relationship between the two?
Well, I think really what I've noticed in my own journey in business, and I really just pride myself in being a mum of three, and I think I'm a good role model in the sense, and I don't say this lightly, but I know that a lot of people have the belief that they can't do both. And
So good.
I really want to show that you get to have both, but we also get to create businesses that are of high scale, that creates the impact with the people that you really want to serve. And also that gives you the freedom to do, whatever is in your bigger vision. And I think when I asked myself that question, actually at the beginning of last year, how can I reach all 5 levels of freedom? Whether that's freedom of time, freedom of relationship, freedom of location, freedom of wealth, just freedom of purpose. And I think those are such beautiful questions to sit with. And I go, okay, great. What would that actually look like for me? Freedom of purpose. Well, doing something that you actually love every single day and trusting that the vision that you have for your life, that you can monetize that and turn that into a business. I think that's the coolest part.
100%.
And what I really, really love helping people with, because I do think that passion matters as we are building something bigger outside of ourselves, really impacting people. And then the freedom of wealth. Okay, great. Well, I am the vehicle in my business. How can I now create vehicles around me that will work for me when I am not working? And I'm big on this, even in business. I often say that I'm the queen of daily sales. I want to have a sales machine that just runs in my business. And I wake up to sales every single day because I value the freedom of time. And I want to make sure that I don't have to be glued to my phone in order for me to make money. And that also applies to property. It works the
Definitely.
same. I don't need to touch it. I don't need to do anything. I just need to sit back and let it do its thing. Very much same applies to business. So I think moving forward for me, I have a goal of buying at least one a year. If I can just be conservative, that would be beautiful. Just to sit and buy one a year. We haven't bought one. Well, what are we? 31 days into it.
Yeah.
But we're in the process now of looking into another residential. The commercial one was the last one, and I think I just want to keep on growing and building and just keep impacting people in my business. I have that many business owners that come to me every single day, and they have this fire of like, I'm here to do really, really big things. Help me. And I often say, if you are clear on the what and the why, the how is never the problem.
Love that. So good. So good. And what would you say to the person listening right now, right? I reckon you would have a good answer to this because you would scream this every day of the week. But like, there'll be someone listening right now and they're charged up, right? They're charged up. They're probably doing well in their business and they're like, all right, I'm going to journal. I'm going to get my clear vision. What would you say when it comes to that scary moment of whether it's property or something where you say there needs to be a passive vehicle outside of just your business too, that gut feeling of that uncertainty or unsure or something like that. Someone listening right now and they're thinking that exact thing. What would you say? Because it will come up.
Yeah, I think it's a very good indication. I ask myself, if you tune into your life currently, does it feel expensive or does it feel restrictive? Just on an energetic level, not like how does it feel when you wake up every single morning? Do you feel expensive?
Yeah.
Or do you feel just restricted? That's just the first indication. If you are just happy and loving life and things are flowing, like great, like maybe you're just happy right now. Maybe you're like in the maintenance phase. But if you know that you have more in you and you're like, oh, but I don't know how. Well, let me just ask you this. Would you know just like one or two things that would just move you a little bit closer to where you want to go? 10 out of 10 times people will be like, yeah, I would know like one or two things I could probably do today. My second question is, why haven't you done it? If you know one or two things, if you have clarity on your vision, 100% clarity, 100% belief, 100% of the time, if you have clarity on your vision and you may know one or two steps that would just move you closer, why haven't you done them? So my question is, well, is the path important enough? Because I get to make the assumption, if you are not backing yourself and taking those one or two steps, I'm going to make the assumption that it's not important enough. And then people get to have a really good look in the mirror and they're like, well, it is important enough. I'm just procrastinating because they are scared. And then they use the whole, no, I'm a perfectionist. I want to wait for the right time. That's just a cute word for procrastination.
Yes.
Be willing to be in it. And I think, well, will that expand you? Will you fuck up? Will you run into challenges? 100%.
Definitely, yeah.
But you need to be able to say, I did everything that I possibly could. And that is, I don't want to get to the end of my days and be like, no, I didn't give it my all. And I'm really big on it now as a mom. I want to be able to tell this to my children. I want to set that example for my children.
I love that. I love that. And at the end of the day, it's like, I love what you said. There's going to be 100% there will be. So yeah, I love that. Like everything you explained there, Rebecca, is just so not only inspiring, but I really hopefully highlighted that you've got a few properties up your belt now. You're doing well in it, but you didn't have a degree in property investment and everything. Like you're from a different country.
Yeah.
So I love highlighting that. The common theme I noticed out of today, Rebecca, was that a lot of everything there was a lot of mindset and just your belief structure.
Yeah.
In all honesty, I just see it as like you're willing to kind of learn and go, and you know that pain or mistake is part of the succession.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Like making a mistake doesn't make you a bad person.
Yeah.
You just need to show that you have the resilience to get back up again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think, when I look back at my property journey, it certainly wasn't perfect. It's like when I look back at when we bought, our first commercial, I did not know that your borrowing capacity was going to be way less. I walked in and I signed an unconditional contract with 21-day settlement and then called my broker. Like, people will think that I'm an absolute idiot.
Yeah.
Like, he was like, you can't be serious. And I was like, well, I got the vision, and I'm like, here we are. And I said, you're going to have to make it work. We settled in 21 days.
Wow.
And little did I know, because I had not done my research. It's probably something that I do recommend, that this is how willing I am to be in it. So I'm like, okay, great. I put 50 grand down. I had to be willing to lose that because, I signed an unconditional contract and we had not had a discussion with the bank yet. And I learned a lot from that. And then I was like, oh shit, there's GST on top, buying a commercial property. Little did I know. So thinking I had to put down a 100 grand deposit, that ended up being $298,000 that I had to cough up within 21 days. So that was a stressful time, but we got there in the end. And now I'm so happy that we are finally in. And now we're a year later and we're laughing.
Yeah. And the thing is, this is what I love too around property. If you put on a plate to someone everything they need to do and the challenges they would probably face, and you need to do this, this, and this, and this will probably happen.
Yeah.
They're probably not doing anything, right?
Yes.
And that's why I say sometimes the naivety is, but the belief is actually where it's at. And I notice that with property. Like, if I go back on my journey and some of the like little maintenance things and knickknacks, and it's just like, it's kind of annoying. But if you put that on a plate at the start, it'd be like, oh, that seems a bit annoying. But
for sure,
sometimes you just got to leap in and you'll figure it out all on the way. And the biggest, I guess, cherry on top is if you look at the money you've made on the properties from when you bought to now, yes, I'm willing to give me that plate
for a slight inconvenience of challenges. Maybe, 100%.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah, you take it every day of the week.
You just got to jump. You just got to jump and get in there, and then just figure it out as you go. And I think sometimes we are so fixated of like building things until it's perfect and then we take action. And, this applies for both business and property. And I'm like, sell the thing and then go and build it type thing. Especially in business. But then now when I think about that in property, it's like, well, what if I'm just going to start, like, go and get your pre-approval, have the conversation with the bank, like, get yourself a broker, start to look at properties, like, be in the energy of it. And I often say, like, you can't possibly attract something you constantly ignore. And if you are dreaming of having a property, but you don't go to any opens, you don't have conversations around it, you don't listen to podcasts, like, you haven't even gone to the bank, you don't even have a savings account for a deposit, like, well, it's going to be a very long time. And let your life show in a very tangible way that you are doing what you can control today to move you closer to getting that property. That's all it is.
Exposure, get exposure to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. We could be here for another 2 hours, Rebecca. That's absolutely. I'm jacked up. I'm ready to go and kill the world. I'm going to crush it today.
100%.
Let's go. No, I love it. Again, I'm passionate about business. I'm passionate about property, and that's the whole purpose of today, is just to give an insight into you. You're doing your thing. Everyone sees you're crushing in business, but I bet a lot of people didn't know, like, you're doing these amazing things in property too. And I heard it somewhere the other day. If you've got 5 or more, like, you're in the top 0.0 something percent of only 20 something thousand Australians can get past 3 or 4, and because of some of the challenges we set around capacity and not understanding the game. It's such a game of finance, right? And
100%,
get educated, get help if you need it, and just believe. I just love the cherry on top, I think, of everything is unwavering belief and understanding your why. We had a few questions come in just quickly, just mindful of time, but just short fire answers. One of them was around commercial. It was what was it? When did you know you were ready to buy commercial space?
Oh.
What were the key reasons?
Beautiful question. So worked from home, and I really felt creatively that I needed a space for my own creativity. So it wasn't so much like a strategic investment. It was more for my own, I need another space so I can creatively expand.
I love it.
And that was basically the decision. I was sick of working from home. I wanted the separation. And basically that was the first commercial property I looked at, bought it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess a small one too, the benefits of being a business owner and owning commercial in terms of, kind of
Money
renting
from
to
right
yourself.
pocket to 100%, and that's
Yeah.
what we are doing now.
Yeah.
So obviously my husband and I, we buy all the properties in our names, and we bought the commercial property, but my company leases the commercial. And it just works because now I have I call it high quality problems of needing to find ways to minimize tax in my company because I run on such high profit margins. It's a beautiful way just to, first of all, for my own creativity, to have a beautiful aesthetic space that I can step into. But not only that, it's a way to minimize tax and money from right pocket to left pocket.
Yeah, 100%. So business owners listening to this, it's a very strategic way you can kind of the transfer of wealth between different
for
things.
Sure.
Yeah.
And some people may argue saying, well, that's not the smartest investment. You should get other people to work for that. But for me, just from a creative aspect, seeing the business, like sometimes it may not make sense financially on paper for me to pay the mortgage repayments for my company into, like, I understand that. But what it did for me, creatively being able to step into an office where I'm just feeling like, let's fucking go every single day. I know that I will generate more revenue and more money because I'm so in my zone with no distractions, washing, just shit in my house. I'm coming into a space where I know all I'm there to do is work and create more impact.
Yeah. Yeah, double-edged sword of investing.
Well, that's exactly
investing
right.
in
Yeah,
yourself,
so you got to
investing
choose
in the
that.
business.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's an asset at the end of the day. Which
exactly right.
If you ever keep it, you rent it out as a commercial asset, right? There was a few, but we've just got time for one more. What's your morning routine?
You know what? When people ask me this, I feel like I always leave people quite disappointed.
Yeah.
I think this is where I want. It's probably very different to what your morning routine is. But very, very quickly here, I've got 3 young kids, and something I just want to highlight here. I plan my weeks on a worst case scenario type day. What I mean by that is that I plan out in my mind to go, what is the worst thing that can happen today? Well, my kids don't sleep through the night. One is going to wake up sick. 2 is going to have a meltdown before school. I'm going to spill coffee on my white shirt. Like, it's just going to be an absolute disaster. And it's not that I'm pessimistic. I'm just planning for the worst case scenario type day so I can still show up even on my worst days. So, for instance, my mornings are very slow for that reason. I never take a meeting before 10 o'clock. So thank you for pushing the time to do this, starting 10 o'clock my time, simply because I want to have the spaciousness to, if I've had a bad night with the kids and whatever that is. So my morning routine is I wake up and I make myself a coffee and I have a beautiful deck with a beautiful view, and I just sit there for probably 4 to 5 minutes in complete stillness. I call my house the Zen house in the morning. The kids got the memo. It's just a very peaceful place to be. And that's my morning routine. And I get ready and I go straight into work.
I love that. It's so good.
And I think that, because often it's like, oh, do you train? Do you do this? Do you do that? The season of life that I'm currently in, it's too unpredictable for me to be able to show up to that. So my training times are like random, 3:15 in the afternoon. Is that the most ideal time I want to train? Probably not, but I know that's when I will be the most consistent.
Yeah, love it. Consistency is key. And one last question, actually. I think people would be interested in. This is a common one, I feel, business, people in relationships. How do you navigate with your husband the journey? Like, just say if there's someone listening and they're all for this, they're all in with business, investing, but maybe their spouse, husband or wife, maybe on a different path. And because one of the biggest things to break down in relationships is money, right? And a lot of today was money, and it's not just you. You've got 3 kids and there's a partner in it too.
Yeah.
How do you... Now, is there any tips for those people who might be struggling with that?
Yeah, 100%. So, I'm married to a soldier, and he's a veteran. He's a soldier. Yeah. And when it comes to business numbers, he's like, I'm out. That's your thing. So I think first and foremost, and my husband has, we're very, very lucky. He's now been a stay-at-home dad for over 3 years now. And I feel like I'm very, very happy to give him the gift, given all the work that he's put into both the Army and Navy for many years. And first and foremost, we got very clear on what our roles were when it comes to money and investing. And I know, first of all, I'm very interested. I can talk numbers all day, every day, love a good spreadsheet, love forecasting, like all the things. Like a weekend away chatting numbers, like I will be there. It's not his thing, which means that he's like, whatever, we are clear on the vision, but he lets me like just take charge and run with that.
Love it. Yeah.
And I think that is a really important separation first and foremost. Yes, of course, the vision like has to align, and I will never do anything if he's not all in. So that's being on the same page is really important. But he has really let me like make those major decisions because he knows, number one, I'm far more interested, educated in it. I know my numbers, and he will trust me that I will make a good investment, and he's got my back in that. So I think that's really important. And I think also sometimes, like, even when it comes to like business, you know, we are so into like personal development. Again, I'm married to a soldier. He's like, discipline, shut the fuck up, go up and get your, like, do your thing. Like, he's true and true military. So for him, when I talk like about shadow work and ego and this and that, he would be like,
Fem energy.
Like, what are you fucking talking about? But I love that because a lot of people, especially women to their husbands, they're like, oh, he's not interested. I'm like, cool, it's not his journey. Let him be who he is, or let her be who she is. You still get to go on your journey as long as you feel like you have their unwavering support. And I think if I look back at all of the things that I'm doing right now, my husband's got my back.
Love that.
Does he want to take the same path as me? Absolutely not. He's got no interest. But he is unwavering in his support to me, which makes me feel really safe to get to where I want to go.
Oh, love that. Such a beautiful answer. And it's such a big one, isn't it? In today's society. That's unreal. Love that answer. And lastly, our temp therapy fast five. So first thing that comes to mind, this is brought to you by Temp Therapy Wellness. Infrared saunas are absolutely unreal. So code word SRAMA, the boys will free delivery and install 15% off. So yeah, the best infrared saunas. Yeah. Get amongst them. So Temp Therapy, code word SRAMA, SRAMA. So your Temp Therapy Gold Coast Fast Five, number one, favorite Gold Coast beach.
Oh, I'm gonna say Rainbow.
Oh, down the southern end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
definitely.
What a spot.
Yeah, we just have a nice little community there. I just love even like the Black Dingo Cafe up the top there. Like, it's, and
Spot.
all the way around to Rainbow there. It's just beautiful.
Absolute spot. That might lead into favorite cafe or restaurant on the Gold Coast.
Favorite cafe or restaurant? Well, I would probably actually say Black Dingo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Favorite cafe.
Is that at the top?
Yeah.
Yeah, where the D bar used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just
I've
can't beat-
heard it's good.
You
yeah.
just can't beat the view. It's just something about the ocean and just sitting there, and you know, it's just very, very simple.
Yeah.
I love it.
Talk about prime real estate.
I know, right? Yeah, they got lucky.
What a spot there.
Poor cafe across the road.
Yeah.
Like, since they open, it's like just empty.
All right. What Gold Coast suburb are you keeping an eye on? Then now we're talking more property. What pocket of the Gold Coast do you like?
Love Broad Beach.
Yeah.
Simply because we had a phenomenal win in Broad Beach. Broad Beach, Palm Beach.
Yeah. I love that whole pocket. We just did an episode a few weeks ago on bridesmaid suburbs, and there's a few adjacent to that Broad Beach pocket that I really want to keep an eye on too.
Yes,
but you absolutely
100%.
nailed it there.
Yeah.
Favorite holiday home destination outside the Gold Coast?
Can I say Hamilton Island?
Spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a spot.
Yeah, I went there at the end of last year. Just set my husband and his mum up there in a little mother and son holiday. It's just the best.
Yeah.
If you want spaciousness, time, beautiful landscape, stillness, Hamilton Island.
Golf buggies, eh? Just kidding.
that's
Yeah,
it.
what a
Best.
lifestyle, yeah.
The golf course?
Yeah, I know. I still haven't hit there, but I heard
Okay,
it's...
no, you have to.
Yeah, I heard.
definitely. Anywhere we can play golf.
Yes, yeah. And then lastly, where would you build the dream home, you think? When it's all said and done, Rebecca, Adehill, and, you know, you're winding off the business, and I'm sure, I don't know when that, because you're a go-getter, but
100%.
it's time to ease up. You've got the capacity to build whatever you want, wherever you want.
Well, I have two visions, and if I can have two,
You can have as many as you
okay,
want if
great,
you want.
thank
Yeah.
you. No, one will certainly be Currumbin. I really
Love
love
it.
Yeah, I really
Hill
love,
or
yeah,
beachside?
Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, just Hill, Currumbin, definitely.
Great spot.
And then I want just a big property just up in the valley, just up in the valley where I can just beautiful landscape, beautiful view, stillness, peace.
Love it.
Yeah.
Like a Tally Valley or
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will go between both.
Yeah. Love that. How good. Well, Rebecca Adehill, I really appreciate your time. I had a lot of fun with that one. Just not only obviously your journey in business, but hopefully it gave some people insight too on something different, but probably you don't share too much, right? Like your property
100%.
journey.
No,
So
thank you. I appreciate the questions as well. And like now I'm like, can I go and buy another property? Like now I'm so fired up. This is like, and I think it's so great because the more conversations you have like this, it's like now you're like, yeah, I'm ready to go. Like you're excited, I'm excited. Because this is what it's all about, like just having more conversations, being around people that just get it. You're on the same wavelength, then we just get to go for it.
yeah.
Figure it out as we do.
Friday, LFG. Let's get after it,
Let's do it, 100%.
Let's go. Yeah. Thanks, Beck.
Thank you for having me.